Hello there, Shortcuts. Stephen here with a fairly uncompromising list that will surprise the rock, metal, and avant garde list, which will be posted to you all on email at 9 p.m. Wednesday, which will be Wednesday the 21st. So this list will be priced and sent to you all then. As I said, this is a kind of an uncompromising list. This is a little bit more challenging in some respects than maybe some lists that I've done recently, certainly in a while. All right, so let's get into it. So I thought I'd choose this as the lead-off record. I think that punk has traditionally been held as a male dominated adolescent roar against the poverty of the 70s in terms of politics and I guess in your pocket, and the largesse of bands like Yes and others that the youth threw up their arms against. And so it's kind of taking place, not roughly, but similarly in New York and London, probably other cities all around the world. But there were some amazing female influences in punk as well. X-Ray Specs being an absolute favorite of mine. But what about the Slits? So this is the Japanese first press of the Slits' second album, which is called Return of the Giant Slits. So it doesn't quite have the protagonists in clay like they were on the iconic cover of the first album. But it still pretty interesting, beautiful, almost kind of Japanese anime style, kind of. Also, a little bit of the writing is a little bit like that 50s kind of disaster movie style. And this record is very, very different to the debut record. This was released, I think it was 81 or 82, their second record. Ari Up being the amazing lead singer. I love the story of how she met Palmolive, who was no longer in the band by this point, but they met at a Patti Smith gig, I think in London, and one of them had a row with their mum, and they decided to form a band and rehearsed the next day, and ended up touring with the Clash and the Buzzcocks, Subway Sect, and others. But this record is quite interesting. On stage, the Slits were, by all accounts, a pretty uncompromising bunch, and Ari Up in particular would be aggressive and transgressive as well. But on this album, the music is really fascinating. I think, and I'd be interested. I've had this record for quite a long time, and when I listen to it, I hear Björk. I think that almost two-step melody style that Björk has, where it's high, low, high, low, high, low, is kind of replicated in many respects in the songs on Return of the Giant Slits. And on this record, you definitely hear the influence of dub and reggae. They changed the drummer on this record too, and this guy, I can't remember his name, maybe it popped into my mind, but he went on to drum with Susie and the Banshees. There's a picture of him right there. And so what you get is this very rhythmic style, even with some of the songs like Earth Beat, which is the opening track, which is really quite hypnotic. Improperly Dressed is another one of my favorites. And then it kind of reprises Earth Beat in a kind of unusual way toward the end. But an uncompromising kind of punk dub record, Return of the Giant Slits. Pretty rare and unusual. Now, I mentioned uncompromising. This next record is potentially the most divisive and uncompromising record in the history of recorded rock music. That is a big call. The record I'm talking about is Lou Reed's fifth album, Metal Machine Music. This is the Japanese first press. Wowzers. So I could not believe it when this turned up in the box. The gatefold is in amazing condition, has this phenomenal rant, and written by Lou Reed. Passion, realism. Realism was the key. The records were letters, real letters from me. It is well worth reading. You can hear Lou Reed's voice when you read the rant on the inside of Metal Music Machine. Mastered by Bob Ludwig. And even what's written on the sleeve, an electronic instrumental composition. That only gives away half the story. Dexterity component synthesis of sympathiomimetic musics. This record is mad. I've never been able to make my way through the whole thing. Never. It is crazy. Avoidance of any type of atonality. Electro voice, high filter microphones, a Fender tremolo unit. No panning, no phasing, it is like a manifesto. And what you end up with is this. It is guaranteed to empty a room. But in the right mood, it is deeply weird. I mean, I was just collecting some of the comments that people have written about this record over the years. The critical reception. For example, on release, it was reviewed in the Rolling Stone magazine as sounding, I quote, the tubular groaning of a galactic refrigerator, and as displeasing to experience as, quote, a night in a bus terminal. A 2-disc set consisting of nothing more than ear-wrecking electronic sludge, guaranteed to clear any room of humans in record time. I wouldn't be quite that derisive of what is clearly an experiment from a genius, and a genius who had been part of the 17-minute noise onslaught that is Sister Ray when he was in Velvet Underground. It is incredibly divisive. I cannot describe just how atonal and bombarding it is. Lester Bangs is one of the greatest of all rock critics. He wrote that Metal Machine Music, as classical music, it adds nothing to a genre that may well be depleted. As rock and roll, it's interesting garage electronic rock and roll. As a statement, it's great. As a giant FU, it shows integrity. A sick, twisted, dunced-out, malevolent, perverted, psychopathic integrity, but integrity nonetheless. The majestic Lester Bangs wraps his oratory around the absolute enigma that is Metal Machine Music. And so, the uncompromising continues, but this time with 2 records that I think are amongst 2 of the greatest of all time. I'm talking about 2 records from the Ditch trilogy. Neil Young's Tonight's the Night, and Neil Young's On the Beach. I'm going to talk about On the Beach because I spoke about Tonight's the Night a while back. On any given day, there's a pretty fair chance that if someone says to me, your favorite Neil Young record, I'm going to pick On the Beach. I've spoken about the desolation of the title, the absolute, complete, just the composition of that sleeve is fantastic. Even the weird plant on the back, everything about it is so considered. And of course, the tragedy of Neil Young's life at that time, losing his best friend to drugs and almost his own mind, I guess it's fair to say. And that produces songs like Revolution Blues and Vampire Blues and Ambulance Blues. All three of those are lengthy examinations of Neil Young's conscience, I think, and how he felt about himself, and he really wasn't happy. And yet, amongst those deeply heartfelt songs are songs like Walk On, maybe his best ever opening song. And you almost think when you listen to Walk On that you're going to listen to a happy-go-lucky record, but it's a fool's errand. It is the opposite of that. You've got For the Turnstiles. I think, for my money, maybe the greatest dual guitar acoustic recording I have in my collection. I love the fact that at 40 seconds in, the drone of an airplane going over the studio can very clearly be heard. And when the guitar picking becomes this almost bluegrass slide, it's just wonderful. It's an amazing record. And the great thing is, on Japanese vinyl, it sounds bloody amazing. And then, you got Tonight's the Night as well. Maybe his sloppiest and most it is weird in that it's sloppy but so accessible and so tuneful, and on occasions so incredibly sad. Oh. Two of the greatest, most uncompromising statements in the canon of Mr. Neil Young. Things are a little bit different from here on in. Can lift the mood a bit. I have two Japanese first presses of In Excess. They're rather easy to find and still very wonderful to swing, but they're significantly harder to find. Maybe their best record, who knows? Depends what you think. Shabu Shaba. Look, this is super hard to find. I'm sure there are some In Excess fans out there who will be interested in those. All right, what do we got? I got a couple of records from a band that I've never discussed on Shortcuts up till now. Night Finbar. And that is a Japanese electronic band called the Yellow Magic Orchestra. This is their first two albums. This is their debut album and self-titled. And this is maybe the jewel in the crown of Yellow Magic Orchestra. That's Solid State Survivor, released in 1979. Riichi Sakamoto and the guys. What you've got is synth-driven, clearly influenced by Kraftwerk, but with Japanese bent, which means that it's playful and fun. Solid State Survivor sold over 2 million records. This was a hit around the world. It had some English lyrics written. I can't remember by the name of the guy. They got a guy to write them some English lyrics. And the band didn't speak English, but I think he phonetically wrote them out. Certainly that's the way it sounds as you listen to them. And it's kind of funny. I think a particular highlight in terms of that weird quirk is the cover of Day Tripper. But Solid State Survivor, the title track, is really, really interesting. Behind the Mask, you will recognize it from multiple soundtracks. that it's been in through the years. I play Yellow Magic Orchestra in the home here quite regularly, and it's very accessible, fun, legitimately pleasurable electronic synth experience. And there is something about the pulleys and the air moving around these amazing synths from the 70s that sounds great on vinyl. Now I have a run of classics to finish. Now this is one I have not had. Now I had a look. I have not had this for I think 18 months. Maybe more. It is the Japanese first press of Rumors, Fleetwood Mac. There's a pretty good chance that is the I'm trying to rack back now over the years. It may well be the first Japanese pressing I ever listened to. I remember being floored by how good it was compared to what I had before. And this is a really, really nice copy. It's got that beautiful sleeve. Sometimes the sleeve gets discolored. It's got the inserts. It's got everything. It's great. If you know that record, everyone knows that record. Wonderful. I have the Japanese first press still in its laminate of Fandango ZZ Top. One side live, one side the best studio side they ever made. Nasty Dogs and Funky Kings, Blue Jean Blues. Blue Jean Blues, just under 5 minutes long, and I want it to be 10 minutes every time I listen to it. Balinese, Mexican Blackbird, Heard on the X, and then finally the utterly transcendent Tush. Side 2 of the wonderful Fandango on the London label. You will not find a better copy. It is in fabulous condition. There's that. There's still some special ones to come. What about this? This is the P10125A pressing of Led Zeppelin 4. But you might notice a little extra. It is the Japanese single of Rock and Roll with 4 sticks on the B-side. And what you've got is a lovely copy of Led Zeppelin 4 and the lead-off single in Japan. Alright, and a little Pink Floyd double to finish. My 2 favourite pressings of Animals and Metal. This is my favourite pressing, EMS 80322. It's on the EMI label. I prefer it to the first press on the Black Odeon label. I think it's beautiful. It's got warmth and depth. The vinyl is pristine. And then this is the Japanese first press of Animals. This was the first ever Japanese Pink Floyd press that I listened to. I got a box and it had Wish You Were Here, The Wall, and this. And I still have all 3 of those records in my collection. I have not swapped them out. I think maybe better sleeves and better things that I've got over the years, but I've always kept those originals. This is the original pressing. This is the original inner with the lyrics. And this is one of the great gatefolds in fantastic condition. Animals. Of course, Roger Waters dominates on this record, but doesn't overshadow. And Dave Gilmour, Nick Mason, and Richard Wright all combine to make clearly one of the great records of the 70s. So there you have it. Floyd, Lou Reed, Fleetwood Mac, Yellow Magic Orchestra, In Excess. And we started out with the punk explosion that is the Slits. There's an interesting list for you all. As always, if you liked what you heard, please reach out to me. Shortcuts Records AUS, Oz. So Shortcuts Records AUS at gmail.com if you want to receive the price list that comes out every week. This is list 1, over and out, classic rock, punk, avant-garde, as I said, noise, I guess you would call Metal Machine music. Still one more list to come. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you. Bye.